What is up, my friends? We are at the Houndstooth on College. We're at the Houndstooth on College. It's Chase's local for coffee in the day and craft beers at night. They didn't pay me to say that. They didn't give me a reduction in rent, but it's a cool place, so I wanted to say it. This is an Ask Robin Black All Karate Combat Edition. I'm telling you, my friends, I'm having the craziest couple of weeks right now. All good things, but it was like I was fight coordinating some reenactments for this documentary series that I'll hopefully be able to talk about in a couple of weeks. All week, and doing some Sports Center stuff, and I'm going to Amsterdam after this, but I just wanted to hang, and it's actually therapeutic. When things are really crazy and busy, like hanging and being able to organize your thoughts for me is really useful. All Karate Combat Edition, because I was asking for questions, and I realized, man, of all of the cool things I get to do, right now Karate Combat is the one people ask me about the most. And never, ever in my life, and I've been doing this now for a long time, have I had so many fighters after every show in my DMs being like, hey man, how can I get a Karate Combat fight? This is the thing everyone's talking about. And it's cool, and it's super fun. I'm gonna take questions more or less exclusively about Karate Combat. I will go down rabbit holes that deviate from Karate Combat, because that's what I like to do. That's part of the enjoyable feature nature of this for me. But yeah, we're gonna do it. But I love doing it. Before we get to some questions, let me tell you a couple of things. It's really fun. The people are really cool. It's super frenzied because it moves so quickly. It's like a modern startup. At the time of recording this, I think I'm going to Thailand to analyze pit side, but I don't know. It's not booked, but I think it's happening. So, and I haven't missed one of these. I don't think since the day I started, which was, when did COVID start? 2020? Yeah, 2020. So I don't know, 40, 50, I don't know how many. Well, we're at 50, so 40, I don't know how many I've done. But I haven't missed one. And I don't want to, because it's fun and it's different and it's innovative, and the fights are different, the fighters are different, the language is different, the environment is different, and new, different, innovative, experimental, authentic. These are things I like, right? Things I do not like are regimented, typical, average, run-of-the-mill, more of the same. That's just not, for me personally, I don't like that as much. And I think people agree, because they're talking about it lots. Let's get to some questions. Ask Robin Black, All Karate Combat Edition. We're gonna combine these two right off the top. Or Graham. Many new fans think that Karate Combat is straight karate. What are some techniques you often see in the pit that are clearly and distinctly karate? And which signature techniques from other martial arts have you seen in the pit that are extremely effective? Follow-up, very similar. Lou Della Peru. Predominant martial art background on these fighters. I can see a Muay Thai guy sneaking in there and doing good, but I don't think I've seen any yet. Okay, so I'm going to do a bad job of answering those questions, but I'm going to do I'd like to think, a great job of using them to lead me somewhere. One of the ways that you know somebody, when I use the word casual now, I use it comedically because I think that's such a hilarious thing. We're all casuals of everything. Dean Thomas, who's one of the greatest coaches and brilliant martial artists, and I talk about this all the time. It's when you think you know something, that's when you stop growing. And Dean Thomas, or myself, or anybody who studies anything in search of mastery, we want to be better, know more, and laugh at what we think we know today, 20 years from today. So when I say, you know, when you've got a Karate Combat casual, I'm semi-serious, because we're all some degree of casual. All of us do not know very much in the context of what could be known. However, when you know somebody is a Karate Combat casual is when they look at it and they say, that ain't karate. You don't hear any karate experts saying that, right? And I mean true experts, masters. And the reason you don't hear any of them saying that is the people who say that, what they're looking at, they're looking for guys in white gis doing this in a horseback stance, you know, et cetera, et cetera. That is an era of karate that people think of probably predominantly from the 1970s till, you know, the early 2000s, right? kids with going to learn karate, watching tournaments in karate, seeing katas. Those things are all a part of it. But that's not karate. That is the 1970s interpretation. What do you think it was created for? Combat. Defending yourself and or protecting your family. It is a fighting art. That the thing in your mind from 1977 with a guy with a mustache doing a sidekick, that's not karate either. That is a momentary stop on it. I like to use this analogy all the time. Down, not that far from here, is Chinatown. Chinatown in Toronto, just like Chinatown in Chicago or Little Italy or any of these places, is not an interpretation of China or Italy or whatever. Chinatown in Toronto was it began as an interpretation of a representation of China when it came up, let's say the 1950s. From that point on, it is its own thing. It is no longer China. It is an offshoot that landed in Toronto and evolved independently. Right? Does it make sense, right, Chase? Yeah, and you know, we've got Toronto as this, it's a really wonderful place. We love it here. There's, you know, Greek town, there's, Ramdino always takes me for Trinidadian food in this one little pocket. Like, we have all that, but they are not microcosms of their original country. They broke off from it when these communities sprouted up here. Karate from the 1970s, when you're like, this doesn't look like karate, what you're saying is, this doesn't look like my limited interpretation of what I believe karate is. Karate is not 1970s white gi, straight horseback riding stance, double punch. That's not what it is, right? It is a fighting art that trained all facets, including taking people to the ground and hitting them on the ground. Knees, elbows, and weapons were incorporated into all different levels, areas, and moments in the evolutionary tree that is karate. I said this in the show the other day, it just came into my head. I said, karate is a river with many tributaries. My friend John Nutt was like, bro, I like that one. It just came out. But it's true, right? That is a single tributary. What in the mind of the noob who writes in the thing, this don't look like karate, this isn't karate. That is somebody who, you know, is looking at a single tributary. Karate is, you know what karate is today? The modern interpretation of karate is what you watch Karate Combat 50 or Karate Combat Kickback 3 in Bangkok. I think it's November 14th. That's today's karate. It looked different in the 70s, looked different in the 90s, looked different during Chuck Norris's World Combat League, WCR, I think that's what it was called. It looked different at all these times. It looked different when Andy Hug was, it looked different when kickboxing was a branch off of it. It's continuously changing. It is not represented by the thing in your mind that you imagine it to be. So this is karate. This is modern karate. And if we go a step further, now we move into Bruce Lee, of course, comes from Chinese martial arts. Karate, Okinawa is its roots before it's the heavy part of its evolution happened in Japan. And of course, California and America from the 1960s, 70s on, it evolved in a different way, but this is it today. This is what it is. And then people, when we are very, very limited, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way to myself and what I once believed or to what anybody else believes, but what you see and you go, well, I see Muay Thai. Well, that's not Muay Thai. That is, Muay Thai isn't this and this and this. These are just collections of ideas. So I mentioned Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee in the 1970s was always talking about how styles are limitations and styles become doctrines and then they become gospel and you must do this. That's not what any of these martial arts were, I believe, intended for. People start to possess ideas for their own gain, whether that's they are the teacher, it's their ego, whatever. But martial arts have always evolved. They're supposed to evolve. And every time that they don't evolve and you get an image in your head of what Muay Thai looks like, or what you think karate looks like based on what it once looked like, in a small moment in a river of change, you're stopping along the evolution, you know? And people, and it gets even muddier because now there are questions in here. How would some of these people do I dropped my mic, Chase. How would some of these people do in the UFC is a question you see a lot. The UFC is also just a corporate fighting show. It's not a martial art. It is an environment in which martial arts can be brought in and used in a competitive environment with a bunch of rules, with a bunch of structures, a cage, 5 minutes, whatever. In karate, there's a pit, 3 minutes. Certain things can and can't be used. Those aren't martial arts. Those are fighting structures for a competitive event, right? So it's a complicated thing, as most things really are. And 5-10 years ago, the job of somebody like me was to answer these things in the most primary colors possible. Oh, well, this is Muay Thai, you know, the low kick in Muay Thai, we hit it into the thigh, we smash one of the 4 quadriceps there. In karate, we've seen the axe kick used in this way, and that's karate, but that's not truthful. And in fact, the more we do that, the further from the truth we get. We get to points where the reason people think this isn't karate, this is Muay Thai, is because they've been told, people like me, when I did my job, I believe less truthfully, not on purpose. I was doing what I believed you should do. But when you start categorizing everything, for the simplicity of a television program, a news program, a sports program, this is karate, this is boxing, none of those things are any of those things. There's no such thing as boxing. There's no such thing as karate. There's no such thing as any of these. They're simply belief systems based on experience, trial and error. Martial arts is freedom of expression. I'll go on to another question in a bit, but this one's been really fun to play around. The best martial artists, part of their actual evolution, where they get to, the great ones that you see fighting today, some of them are anchored in tradition, and that's their choice, you know, but they don't have to be. They don't have to be. You're not better because you're anchored in a tradition of karate or a tradition of Muay Thai or a tradition of boxing. These are just belief systems, you know, spider webs of beliefs that have been mechanized into tools, right? But they're not the be-all, end-all of tools. Again, Dean Thomas and I were literally having this conversation yesterday. If we believe X to be this, Y to be this, this is how you always do this, never do this, we can't continue to evolve. When I started jiu-jitsu, say, in 2005, I think, even at that time, they were like, never cross your feet when you do an arm bar. And I believe they were saying then, don't do an arm in guillotine. Both of those two things, of course, are nonsense, right? And there's thousands of things like that in every martial art form, business, walk of life, any paradigm in the world. The things, the doctrines and the gospels that you believe to be true will one day not be true when we learn more or think differently. And so you don't want to get trapped in these things. It's easier to say, Alex Pereira has great boxing and beautiful Muay Thai. You know, how's his takedown defense? But Alex Pereira's nervous system doesn't know any of those words. It's simply moving and expressing training. We can watch it and label it as boxing. We can watch it and label it as whatever, but that limits our understanding of what's possible to be understood. It's also why, you know, you get to a point where you're kind of trapped here. It's like you're kind of trapped in ideas with nowhere to go because you've created these walls that limit your ability to look at things, you know? So the truth is, karate is this, but also there's no such thing as karate. Karate's only, you know, most of these things, people like traditional martial arts, some of them are only 100 years old, 150 years old, 200 years old. That's nothing. That's no time, you know? And what they'll become if what we call karate or boxing or whatever happens to exist for 1,000 years more, the first 200 years they'll go, it was, you know, rudimentary. We think about it totally differently now. You know, what does karate look like in 2080? Is it supposed to look the way you imagine karate to look like in 1977? Of course it's not. It's a living organism, liquid and ever-changing, right? And these are not easy things to, these things cause us to struggle with what we know, but what we know are generally limitations to understanding what we see. So, but this is my area of deep curiosity now. these ideas that it's like, where are we limited by the words we use, the language we use? Where are we missing language to better open up our understanding of what is karate, what is fighting, what is martial artistry? How are these two people doing that? If we're limited only by the ideas and concepts and words that we've been using for 10, 20 years, we're going to stop. We have to question what are these things in the giant soup of life and of everything. So the truth is, this is fucking karate. This is karate. Why is it karate? Because we say it is. This, why was that karate in the 1970s? Because people who represented, were stakeholders in the world, in the passing on of what karate was, said it was that. And that's why it looked that way. And this is always true. This is the biggest karate league in the history of professional fighting. And so when this karate league says this is what modern karate looks like, which has taken things from historic early, warrior mentality karate, and has small ingredients from the 1970s, but we've rejected these kinds of things. We don't do touch Olympic style scoring because it's dumb. It doesn't make any, this is fighting. You have to hit them. You can choose. When we're kids, and I don't want my daughter, when she's 6, I want her to do point karate. I don't want her getting kicked in the head. She's going to be a doctor or a programmer. Who knows what she's going to be? But she doesn't need to get kicked in the head. So it's great there. But this is where people fight to prove the value of their martial art, to prove the reality of it, for entertainment, for glory and joy and passion, and for all of us. So karate is simply a word that we use that's a historic word that represents fighting. And this is karate combat. Bink. All right. Sometimes I meander. But, I mean, people giving you sound bites and quick, overly simplified, I'm simprovising. Overly simplified sound bites that, sound great, but may or may not appeal any layers. There's lots of that. And I used to do that. And now I like to do this. Okay, from Zalandor 1. Actually, this is a compliment, and it's an interesting process. I'll tell you about it. Is it difficult to improvise those legendary, nice, thank you, speeches / analysis so quickly on the spot after fights? Is it difficult? Then he says, can your rock band come back for a one-off comeback show? No, we definitely can't. They could, but I was the weak link in that, and I'm getting weaker. I cannot sing. I wasn't very good then, and I really can't sing now. So, but is it difficult to improvise the legendary speeches analysis quickly on the spot after fights? Thank you. I take that as a very big compliment, and it's really nice. My friends are always like, you should hear what George and Big Mike said about you right after you did it. They're always like, how does he do that? Which is so nice. And people are always like, and my friend Sean Wheelock, he works for BKFC, and he was like supervising, executive producing one, and he was like, you're just so different than everybody else. And I take that as a huge compliment, especially coming from Sean. But I do it different, and my process is different. And it was really hard to develop it. And it could be redeveloped by anyone, because most things are learnable, but it's sort of a lifelong practice. But essentially, there is a mechanism through which commentary typically happens. I don't know the parts of the brain. I have sort of studied this, but I don't have the parts of the brain sort of in the front of my brain. But essentially, when people commentate things or react to things or whatever, they see the thing, and then they have a number of responses that are often fairly common, that then a part of their brain lets those things come out. And that sounds pretty rudimentary, and it really is quite rudimentary. Big left hook. Oh my God, big right hand, huge right hand, massive right hand. That's a crazy shot. Dishing out some ground and pound, it's all over. Wow, we got a new contender in the whatever. No disrespect. That is a human mechanism that happens when we do anything. And it's very hard to resist. It's very hard to resist. And in fact, it took me years to try to make it a different process. But so I started to, and I have friends who are like, let people think it's easy. And the truth is, it is easy. And most things, in some ways, it's stressful too, but most things, if you're ever going to really work, if you're going to work 5, 10, 15, 20 years on something, the goal is that it's really hard during the preparation and the learning and the development so that it's easy when you get there. So it is easy, but it was a lot of work to get to the point that it was easy. And I studied a lot of the mechanisms, and there's a lot of research on this, and people wrote, you know, college, university dissertations on it. But what is the process of freestyle rap? Because to me, that had a lot more in common. If I was going to do this to the level that I was hoping to be able to do it, I wouldn't have planned things. I would literally go up to a camera in a moment with new information and inspiration from having watched, and then open my mouth and it would fall out. And that sounds easy. It's really, really hard. And even after it's worked successfully 100 times now, you know, 20 shows, I do 5 to 10 analysis a show, it's 100 to 200. And I have 2,000, I think it's either 2,000 or 3,000. I have going on, I have 2,956 posts on my Instagram. When my Instagram was killed by the US, there was one dick at the UFC. I don't know, to be rude. I could say his name, but he's not a public figure, so it'd be rude. He doesn't need that. Even though I don't know why I'm protecting a dick. That was mean to me, but reasonably unfair. But somebody took down my Instagram page at 105 or 10,000 consumers, and I had 1,000 or 1,500 pieces there, plus the 1,000 I've done, so 4,000 or 5,000 small pieces. So it is through the doing that you are constantly, and it's similar to freestyle rap, like I said. The good ones are constantly writing, rapping, telling stories, spitting poetry, whatever they're doing, always ongoing, all the time, and pushing their progression of their ability so far that they have them floating around in the back of their head, ideas and concepts and theories and things they've heard and things that aren't fully developed. And then when it's time, they don't sit there with like a plan of what they're going to say. It comes out. And a lot of it, the process of it used to be, to develop anything in that way, it used to be, it would just, nobody would ever see it or hear it. The amazing thing about media, YouTube, social media, all these things, is somebody like me can make 3,000 of something. So I actually get to use the small nuggets in the process of doing it that are the tool through which I get to see things differently. If you do 3,000 of anything, or like in my case, 5,000, 6,000 if you include killed pages and stuff I did for network television that didn't end up going on, 5,000, 6,000 of something. You're going to change. You're going to do it differently. You're going to be more comfortable with it. You're going to trust yourself. You're going to be able to improvise things. You're going to have thousands more ideas to draw from. So there was a conscious desire to figure out what the process is to do this differently. Then you go, well, yeah, but that'll take years. I got years. Where am I going? You know, in 2017, when I started my YouTube channel and started doing these things, I was like, hopefully I'll still be doing this in 2030. And if I am, and it takes me 5 years or 6 years to develop something that's meaningful and useful and fun and different, and maybe people will like it, where am I going? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to keep making this stuff, and in theory, it'll make me better, and then eventually I'll do it different. But there were other key elements to it, and this is a big one. It was a big one, and it wasn't easy because I used to like watching fights. I love the fight now, but I actually don't like fight broadcasts. But I had to turn them off. I used to really like them, but I had to turn them all off, even though I enjoyed it. Because there's a sameness, there is an identity to how you commentate or analyze fights there, and you know what it is. When I said earlier, you know, we're here in this beautiful arena here in gorgeous, the Madison Square Gardens. We got two epic warriors doing battle for the so-and-so belt. And, you know, let's take a look at our first guy. This guy's got an amazing, there's nothing wrong with any of that, but it is an identity. It is a creation. It's a script. It's not a script. It's a bunch of belief systems. We have to do it this way. And if I ask somebody, hey, do we have to do it this way? They'll be like, no, we have some flexibility. It's not a have to like a rule. It's a have to because your brain does it for so long, you don't know how to do any other way. And I was very much like other commentators in 2016, 2017. And I realized two things. One, when Brian Stan said, I don't want to do this anymore, it was because he kind of got to that point, the same one I was sitting at, where he was just like, this is just the same thing over and over again, you know. And yes, this 185-pound guy is brilliant. 6 years from now, there'll be a different brilliant one, and 5 years from that, they'll be different. That'll be meaningful at every point, but when represented by a commentator or somebody discussing one of these things, or even us, the audience, we're like, hey, wait a second. 5 years ago, you told me that Volkanovski was the best featherweight ever. I didn't hear you mention him this week. Oh, you do? Okay. Oh, but what about these two? Like, it goes on forever. Charles Oliveira, I was sitting on SportsCenter with my friend, and he was like, this guy is the best lightweight of all time, and here's all the reasons why. That could have been true, but now the same friend will say that about Makhachev or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm guessing for Brian Stan, when he was just like the repetitiveness of it. Where is this going? Am I being artistically inspired? Is this hard? Am I curious? Am I learning? Am I scared? And he was like, there's other things in life for him. For me, I was like, I just got to change it. It's got to be different. I've got to progress. I got to do it. And so I had to turn off all other things, but it has made my life better. My business is infinitely bigger than it was 5-6 years ago. My partnerships are free. I have all kinds of partnerships all over the world to do cool things that I enjoy, but I also think different now. But a byproduct is I don't actually have any expertise on any of the things that other people who do a similar job do. I cannot tell you anything about Ilya Topuria. Now, by the time we air this, he will have fought and either beat Max or lost to Max. But I don't know anything about him. And I don't know anything about the news around that. I don't know anything about when the next event is, who's on that thing. And that was my job. That is the job of most people who do some similar to what I do, but I don't know anything about it anymore. And that's great. I'm much happier. There's something about the news cycle, even in sports, that kind of keeps you feeling stressed somehow. There's something about it. And then there's a lot of combat, a lot of people angry at each other, and a lot of people saying bad things and provoking each other. And oh, look what this guy said. Oh, you're not going to believe this guy went scorched earth, and he fires back at. I notice that too sometimes. I'm like, he destroys this guy. He didn't destroy him. He typed some words. That whole thing is just sort of not for me anymore. No judgment to anybody else. But yeah, so the whole process changed. The how it changed, the how I see it changed. I didn't consume other people doing it, which allowed me to my own voice started to take over. It's like, well, I don't remember what the identity of the role usually says here. And that's now a good thing for me, but I'll have to explore some other idea. Wow, there's so many curious things about this fight now. So many more curious things about fighting itself. There's curious things about the evolution of how this guy trained, what she's thinking right now, what's happening just so much in there that when I removed the 5 or 6 typical television narratives, I was left with all this amazing shit to look at. So right now it is joyful. It's really fun. I get so much positive feedback on it. George St. Pierre's like, Robin's the best at this. And he's a friend and he's being generous. And Big Mike is always going on. And Big Mike's an improviser. That's what it is to be a YouTuber. And so these people are recognizing that what I'm doing, I'm hitting a good period in my thing. And I'm enjoying it, have fun. Most of the audience likes it. Some of them don't. Definitely like, there was a piece up the other day, like 500,000, 1 million people engaged with it. And it was somebody striking, one of the fighters was disqualified, and then it cut to me. And then there's typically only 4 or 5 responses. If you look under most things, Jake Paul's fighting Mike Tyson, or Kamala Harris said something or didn't say something, whatever it is. There's usually only some variation of 4 or 5 comments. And in this one, there was probably 5 about the fight, and then another 4 or 5 about me, because there was 2 halves of the video. And the fight was like, this guy could have been killed, he did it on purpose. 4 or 5 opinions. Usually we don't get much deeper than that. On mine, there was about half that were like very, very, very complimentary. This guy's amazing. I love what this guy does. He's so, like, really nice things. And then there was, who the fuck is this weirdo? Which is one way for me to know you've never watched a karate combat show. And that's okay. We all consume, there's kids who watch the last 2 minutes of the NBA and nothing else. They don't watch NBA games. You know that, right, Chase? Yeah. It's wild. But it's hey, man, it's the world. You can do what you like. So there's no reason that you have to watch a Karate Combat broadcast. You can absolutely consume it in these bite-sized chunks. But so I know you've never watched it. And then there was a lot of hate because I wear sometimes theatrical makeup like a pro wrestler or rock singer or pirate, whatever, right? And a lot of people really mad at that. But that engagement, that was once a bad thing. If I went on a set at SportsCenter and I had a pink mohawk or a tattoo on my neck or black eyeliner or whatever, within about a week, they'd be like, the audience hates it. We have to can that guy. Today, it's actually so valuable. You get to do your thing more uniquely the way you do it. And instead of being penalized for it, it's actually of great value to your company, to the, in this case, fighters and fights, and the team and all the people you work with, because engagement is a powerful metric. So when people hate something, it's not good when everybody hates it, but when half hate it and half love it, you're right in that pocket. And I didn't get in that pocket on purpose, but I happen to be sitting in it right now. Saying things and being able to be an individual, and the people who seem to like it are like, I like the fact that this guy's his own thing. And yeah, he's a bit weird, but you know, he's fun, he's got a lot of energy. And then other people are like, I do not like the fact that somebody's different, someone or something is different. But it's very, very valuable. And I'm thankful that it is, because I'm not trying to be weird, I'm just kind of weird, right? Like I'm just a bit weird. And that used to be something you had to hide. Now it's something your employer, especially modern companies like a Karate Combat, they're like, we don't want you hiding that. We want you to be if your thing is a little different, if you know, Mike does this thing and George does, Boss is this. Somehow, I mean, Boss is a very good balance of being a unique individual and being super professional, but we've always been like, Boss Rutan isn't like other people, and we love that. And now that carries over to a lot of different people. But I couldn't be happier. It's hard work sometimes. You can be on a 20 hours worth of flying and then be hosting a weigh-ins 4 hours later. It's hard. I'm going to Amsterdam tonight, overnight, to host a weigh-in tomorrow for my friends at LFL. I'll call the fights the next night, and then I'll be on a plane, fly back to Montreal, and my wife will go to work, and I'll have my daughter all day. Like, this is hard. But it's also awesome. There's nothing, and Josh says it sometimes, it's like, I wonder if and he said it on a broadcast, I think the last one, it's like, I wonder if Robin Black was a kid, he had any idea that karate, something like this would exist, that he is literally so perfect in. And it's, again, a big compliment. Not everybody agrees, but today that's kind of a good thing. President Awesome, there are people who love it, and he provokes, he's happy to provoke. He understands the Jake Paul modern mentality. And as a result, he's between you and I, he's a great guy, and he's a smart guy. But it's good. It's good. You know, it's a good thing. We're rewarded for being polarizing now, and the companies see that as a powerful thing. So what I would offer you to take from this is, if you're a little weird, you know, embrace it. Don't hide it. If the thing that makes you different than everybody else is your biggest power. If that is the way you talk, if that's the way you act, if that's the way you think, and it should be all of those things, because we're all individuals. And that's my last thought on it, but I'm going to work really hard to make sure that when people are making fun of my daughter for whatever way she's different, and the way she's different might be she's very, you know, quiet, or you know, dresses very mute colors. It's not like me, and that's great. But if the world is trying to tell her, be more like everybody else, or, you know, don't do the thing that is very honestly you, I'll hope to teach her, no, do the thing that's very honestly you. It's all you have. It's literally all you have. It's you. It's your life. You have to be you. You have to be an individual. And there's people right now who they don't know what's wrong, but something's wrong. They're not being themselves. And it's not their fault. The world is encouraging you to be more like everyone else, and don't. If you've never watched Ask Robin Black before, sometimes I take one question and I meander all around it for 15 minutes, but it's a great joy for me. And if you're still watching, that means you probably have at least moderately enjoyed it. So thank you. I really appreciate it. At least this one, maybe one more. We'll see how we do for time. But this is a really great question. Silly Matt Swinder. Why the slanted sides and not just a ring or cage? It's a great question. Why the slanted sides, and why not just a ring or cage? We could also rephrase that. Why is karate combat in a pit instead of a ring or a cage? Because. Why would it be in a ring or a cage? Why couldn't it be in a plastic globe suspended over sharks, right? Why couldn't it be in this room? Why couldn't it be in a football field? The limitations, you know why a ring existed? Because someone built one. It wasn't intended to be the thing forever. Cages are not great for fighting. And they're not that dramatic anymore. Let me tell you, in the early days when we were watching, oh my God, they're going to lock him in a cage? You know, that was real. That was a real visceral feeling you have. Now it's just it's a football field or a basketball court. It becomes part of the combat shapes around it. But, and it was called the Octagon because Chuck Norris, and I don't know if this is true, but Chuck Norris had a movie called The Octagon around that time. So, well, let's put it in an octagon, right? It wasn't, now, having said that, the sports and the arts take shape around the fighting environment. Rings, later you start to bounce off them. The corners start to become part of strategizing and planning. Trap a guy in there, or you yourself go in there. My friends in BYB have a three-sided, it's called the Trigon. They have a three-sided ring. It's very cool. The corners are a different angle. So what you're in creates the environment. But what you should never limit your creative pursuits. If you're really doing something different in your business or your life or whatever, you should never limit it to the things that are already there. That's just somebody made that. Why don't you're somebody, make one, And that's how, so Rob, and there was a team of people in the early days, and Rob is the anchors back to the beginning vision. And right from day one, he was like, we got to create an environment. We got to create a custom environment for this. And just like the corner of a ring or the walls of a cage or the pit at the edge of the cage, when I was fighting, people were really starting, and I won my last fight by putting the guy up against the cage and elbowing him and kneeing him and stuff until he got really tired, and then I went to either pound him out or submit him on the ground. And so I was training a lot, and that's 2008. And there was a lot of guys really working with the blading of the foot when they're against the cage and somebody's on you, how you would turn your hips and not just spread your hips to be able to dig under if somebody's on you, but actually how to blade your foot into the wedge between the foam and the cage. Why? Because that's the fighting environment. Now, once you start doing that, people would be like, well, you can't do that. Yeah, you can. It's right here. In fact, you should. You should use the environment legally in all the best ways possible. So, karate combat, something new. When you think about the root, so there is art, there's business strategy, there's martial arts, there's a million, there's crypto, there's Web3, there's a lot of different ingredients in karate combat. From a business and creative standpoint, would it make any sense to try to be the third or the fourth biggest MMA league in the world when karate combat started? Put a cage there and bring MMA fighters in and put them in board short? No, why would anyone do that? I mean, not why would you do it. If you love MMA and you create a show, where I'm going this weekend, it's the biggest show in Amsterdam. And we love mixed martial arts, so it makes sense. They have become one of the biggest in Europe, so they created something based on, one, what they loved, and two, from a business standpoint, there was a space. Lots of fighters, and very few places for them to fight in the region. So from a business standpoint, that one made sense. It was a target. We could do this, and this is what we love, and let's do it. But Rob and Karate Combat was thinking, we want to make something massive. That was from day one, tiny little shows as they were. The vision was, let's make this thing massive. And we are martial arts fanatics. Rob is a creator, he's a creative mind, and the rest of the team that's been involved in that. Creative mind, entertainment people, Web3 people, people who innovate things. Innovators want to innovate. Innovators don't want to, and when you want something to be really successful and you're really excited about it, you want to give it a chance to succeed. So it looks different, feels different, environment's different. That's really hard to do at the beginning. Really hard to do. People don't want that. People don't like different. There's an entire study of human behavior dedicated to at what phases people adopt new things. And it's hard. You got to get up that adoption life cycle, that, you know, but we're there now. Like we're deep into it. And now, would you put that thing anywhere else? Other than this super cool pit? The pit walls now are kind of like the ground. You're on it, or the pit walls, when you're on the pit wall, you are not grounded. I should say, you can run up on it like it is the wall and the crowd. You can put your foot on it like it is the ground. But when your arm is on it, you are not on the ground. We can still fight. And the fighting, you know, you want to innovate. You want to create new things. You want to change things. You want to add to it. You want to help things, the organisms of these things grow. You're not going to do that by putting it in the same thing. Now you put it in a different thing. People do like it. That's cool. The audience likes it. That's cool. The fighters like it. That's cool. But martial arts changes as a result. 45-degree wall. Well, I don't know. I trained martial arts from the time before I was 2 digits, 8, 7, 8. And, you know, 4+ decades I've been training martial arts. Till karate combat came along, you know how many days I'd ever trained or thought about or analyzed what would happen if I threw a kick there or if I was angled on a 45-degree wall? Almost zero, right? Pretty near zero. Now we do. Right? That's an entire innovation that happens. All the tech stuff is innovation. Rob and the rest of the team's knowledge and experience and creative, you know, abilities in Web3 and all the tech stuff. Some of that I don't even understand, but that's not what I'm there for. I'm there to analyze martial arts and add some theater, and my authentic enthusiasm is there to add to the show, and that's my job. Somebody else's job is to go, this modern technological elements, crypto and Web3 and blockchain and the steps beyond that they all understand. We have other people who are experts in that. And there's nobody asked me this question, but there's something really cool. Maybe I'll give you that again so that if it's a tech piece. There's something really cool. Sorry, nobody asked me this question, but there is something really cool about the blending of the artistry and science of martial arts and the art and science of you know, crypto, Web3, modern digital and modern, you know, all these related things. There's something there that I wouldn't have predicted that's actually really huge. There's a whole world of people. The way I'm obsessed with martial arts and deeply curious about it and connected to wanting to know how it changes and what I can contribute to it and how it'll change my life and all that. There are people who Web3 is that for them. And we're mingling, and we're seeing how much we actually have in common. And they're falling in love with karate, and I'm fascinated with their culture. And a lot of that cross-pollination is happening in karate combat. And that's a big part of karate combat's future. All right, I don't know, maybe I only answered like 4 questions, but it was really fun, and I'm definitely gonna do an all karate combat edition of Ask Robin Black again. I'm offering this to the Karate Combat team, so if you watched it on Karate Combat YouTube, and you're still here, then you liked it, which is cool, please follow my channel too. And if you watch this on my channel, please, if you're not already, follow Karate Combat, because it's really cool. And it's gonna get bigger, and it's gonna get wilder, and and also, let me know in the comments if you want me to do a weekly or a monthly Karate Combat show. It's something I've discussed with Karate Combat. I would love to do it. Could be part analysis, it could be part philosophy, it could be part action. You know, we know how to create fun things, right? So put it in the comments or at Karate Combat and me on social and tell us you want me to do this once a week or once a month or whatever. And we'll do some modern, better variation of this. Thank you so much for hanging with me. Lots of love. I'm off to Amsterdam.